o'clock. So we have a few things on the agenda for tonight. One of them, the REACH program, which was the last one on the list. Mrs. Williams is going to discuss that, and obviously there's an empty seat there, so probably scratch that one for tonight.
Okay.
Other than that,
What is the REACH program? Or do you not even want to, I don't even know what it is. Or is that, what was that going to be the introduction to it?
I was gonna make an
Okay, no, that's fine.
introduction. Yeah. It's, I mean, 30-second overview, I mean, it's kind of like the HOPE program, except it's only one class, and it's sponsored by Essential Health. Basically, it's a 1-hour thing for kids to register for that need somebody to give them a converter sometimes.
It's another health program, basically. That's all.
All right, so moving on to the athletic thing. At the last time we talked about that, the board asked me to come up with some numbers for how much we're spending on the sport and what the gate fees and participation fees are back. So you have a spreadsheet in front of you that has the budgeted amounts for all the various expenses related to each of the individual sports, plus the salaries of the coaches. There's a total of both of those there, and then we have participation fees for this year, 17-18, so obviously there's a few sports that haven't even started yet, so that's why they're blank. But we do have that updated through winter. You may be looking at a few of them wondering why are there odd numbers, and again, the numbers vary. It's 9 through 12, it's $125, but if you're free and reduced, that number goes down significantly. That's why you have some oddball numbers there. And then gate receipts, and you'll notice that that's through December 31st. January hasn't been reconciled in the books yet. It will be in a day or two. But you can see that as of right now, we don't take in a ton on a couple of the sports. Boys basketball, believe it or not, there wasn't a home game until January. So that's a zero. There were 4 home games for girls basketball. So you can kind of get an idea of where those are going. We only have 6 sports that collect gate fees at this time. So, and then I also put the season pass number on there, and obviously I don't know if they're students or adults or what, but that's the total number that we've collected for season passes this year. In all the spring sports, none of them collect gate fees for any of them.
So like swimming doesn't collect anything, or? Okay.
Any questions on that?
Well, what was the origin of this? I guess I don't know.
We were talking about,
Meeting or not?
we were going through we recommended a coaching handbook, and as part of that, there's the athletic policy in there, which also has fees in it for student participation.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at whether or not we should change those. And the other thing that I brought up myself was maybe we should let all of our students in the door, give them each a pass. And unfortunately, I can't break out, what student comes in the door. I could probably figure out, how many students got in total, but I don't know how many from Eveleth-Gilbert paid to get in.
I mean, to what level what was it, like a fee reduction that was discussed, or some up and some down? Was it arbitrary? Or was
It really wasn't even a discussion about if it should go up or down. I just kind of wanted to know where we're at. So.
Kelly had asked specifically to be able to look at numbers to see, what we're bringing in and things, so that we could look at possibly allowing students into sporting events for free, our students.
So there's that part of it. If there's any questions, you can.
I mean, if it's a participation conversation, I would say, if you're gonna change the fees, you might as well just kind of waive them completely and see if participation comes up all around, right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that was, that
right.
in the previous meeting, we even had a discussion about, but
It was just some other schools let their students in for free to go to sporting events to,
Mike's talking, I think Mike's talking about the participation
Yeah,
fee itself.
right.
Right, and I guess my point is, I guess not being an athletic person, I don't understand why one sport has a fee and one doesn't. You know, I mean,
Well, they
I
all-
realize it's
Well, they all
different.
have fees.
You know,
Well, I mean, I guess I would say gate fees, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not
Yeah, that's the
participation.
gate fees. I
I'm
don't-
sorry.
Yeah, gate fees.
Yeah.
is what it's
Yeah,
called.
I guess, I mean, the sports fees, I guess that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
participation.
public participation as far as gate fees. Yeah, sorry about that, but I mean, that would be my thing, is that if,
I mean, but when you go to Virginia and you go to a track event, you have to pay to get into their event.
Yes.
Okay, so our track events,
We don't have it, we don't host.
we don't host. So,
but if we host on their field, do people have to pay a gate fee to get into
Yes.
ours?
I would assume so.
I don't know that.
I don't know that.
I mean, cause
That's the question.
I went to a few, track meets that were in Virginia, and you had to pay to get in. You had to pay the $6 or whatever.
Were there Virginias you guys?
There was no,
Eveleth-Gilberts?
Eveleth-Gilbert was there.
Oh, okay.
They were just there, though.
Yeah, we just
So
show-
Virginia was hosting
Yeah.
it, so they would get.
They're
the
still,
But- but
it's by
we-
Virginia workers,
Right.
you know.
But we have a fee, the part of our agreement with them is we have a fee to cover that,
Interesting, because we got blanks here.
right? I mean, that's part of our
I
agreement.
mean,
to
if Eveleth and Virginia together and they're hosting, or,
I don't-
we can't host an event, so we can't collect any gate fees in, or whatsoever, right? Or even though we're paying to,
We
we're
typically-
renting their facility per se.
We typically rent their facility for one meet a year, and I guess I don't
Right.
know right now if we collect fees off that or not, I can, something. If we do, I mean, it's not incredibly significant.
Let every drop in a bucket,
Yeah.
it's coming our way.
But that's my point, is if we're talking about public participation, I mean, these numbers are really insubstantial to the overall cost, so I mean, if we really want the public to participate more, I mean, the conversation should be, do we just want to open it up and see if more people will participate and our programs will get more interest in them, if that makes sense? I mean,
So we'll waive the gate fee altogether?
why not? I mean, what are we talking?
I,
mean, the gate
When
fee
you're
here,
talking you're talking 4 football games, about approximately how many people attend the football
This-
games?
It looks like,
Well, that's actually, that 7,400 is low because we had one game that not many people came to this year,
that was
but it's usually hovering around 10 grand.
Yeah.
Typically.
I guess my thought on it is adults are, adults, I don't know, this is just my feeling, but
They should
adults
pay.
are willing to pay.
Yep.
They're willing to pay to come in and watch their grandchildren or children playing a sport. But
I think,
there's some kids whose family can't afford it, but those kids may want to go to a sporting event, and we might have more spectators in the stands if we didn't charge our students a fee to get in the door. So I guess I would be more willing to let students get in free with I would assume they'd have their card,
Yeah.
student ID.
yeah.
And, and even if you took, the gate fee and you made a disclaimer, I'm just, that, 100% of the gate fees go back into the program. You know what I'm saying? I mean, instead of into the general fund, can it go back into the program? I mean, that money, the $7,400, does that actually go back into the fees collected at the football stadium, does that money go back into the football program, or any maintenance, or any upkeep, or anything like that? Where does that money go?
Helps pay for the program. I mean, if you look on the left side, there's expenses that the district pays out of
Right,
the
right.
general fund for that program, and the gate fees help offset that.
Okay, all right, that's it.
the travel expenses have increased drastically this last year because of the way our district was.
Yeah.
It used to be we played Virginia and Mesabi East, local schools, Chisholm. Now we're going to Aiken, we're going all over the place because they're in our section.
If you look at even girls hockey down there, you see the 16.5 on the travel supplies and whatnot. Most of that is travel because they actually spend a lot of time on the road because there aren't any.
Play a lot of,
Yeah.
how many games do they play?
I think it's 20.
That's gotta be somewhere around there.
And is that divided up like 50-50 away and, or how does that work? Cause I know like the boys basketball, I mean, or football, you know, if you play here, or it's in a 2-year cycle, right? Is it a 2-year
Yes.
cycle?
Something like that.
Yes. Well, you know, just from looking at the numbers, it'd be nice, I'm with, I think the general feeling it'd be nice to have students come in for free.
Mhm.
Those numbers are going to drop though. And I'm not gonna say by half, but probably a third of these pay fees are gonna go down. Because a third of the people at the stadium
Are
are
the
students.
students? Yeah, I'm
you
just
know.
thinking about the ones that would like to go, that can't afford to go, or,
There will be more people are more inclined to come,
yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
The stands will be fuller,
Yeah.
we'll be making less.
And that, just my point is, if you wanna go that way, I mean, for the difference in price, I mean, you might as well just go all the way and just let it open and see if the public is willing to participate. If there's no gate fee, you know, I mean, period. And, you know, and then it just puts an even playing field to the other sports that don't have gate fees anyway, you know, I mean, like I said, obviously, some of them, we don't probably have gate fees in because there's really not a way to control.
It's a good spectating
Right,
position.
and I get that, but, I mean,
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents.
they played 20 games, half of them were home.
So then if you share
No,
sport,
that's not right.
if you share
Yeah.
sports with another neighboring district, I mean, how does,
You take the total cost of the program and divide it up on a per participant basis, so each kid has a dollar figure, so if Virginia has 8 kids, we charge them that much to participate. So say there's 20 kids in the program, we divide it by the total number that the program costs us, and whoever has the participants pays for it. Same thing on the ones that we don't host. I mean, we get a bill for like soccer and skiing. Any other questions on that?
I mean, is that something that is gonna come up for a vote at an upcoming meeting on?
Well, okay, I mean, there's no rush, because like I said, I mean, we're 3 weeks away from being done with collecting gate fees for the year anyway, so.
Is there a time of year we set fees and stuff?
Yeah, in July.
So maybe this would be like the
A
time to
discussion.
build up to that time.
All right, so moving on, we got, anything else on that handbook that people noticed? We made a couple shifts the last time we were here.
you got a copy of that, yeah?
You want one?
Yes. The revised one or the,
No. I have the one that I gave you last time.
Yeah,
okay.
and I only have one. I
No.
only have my copy from the last time. Do you want this?
Yeah, I can.
This is the handbook. Do you want the assessment one?
Yeah, I can.
Was it in the board packet or did you hand it?
It was,
You were at the last one.
because it's so thick of a packet, I asked them to just do a couple for on the table at that
Oh.
last meeting, so
There were-
we didn't fill as many trees.
Got in the cloud somewhere.
Gotta keep the people working.
Yeah, I should do that, just send it to electronically. I don't think I seen it come through.
I'm not sure. Did you take a copy of the last time? Or no?
No, no. No. It's up there, right up the miles and right down there.
Groundhog Day recently, correct?
Couple days ago.
positive, they said we hung out for a while.
No matter what you do, remember, spring doesn't end till, 31st of March or whatever, or 21st of March.
This stuff is not very good.
All right, well, I'll wait for those to run off, I'll hit you with something else.
Quick, huh?
That's my, these printing ones.
Alright.
Takes a little bit. Packet.
So one of the things that to go along with the evaluation we looked at, just looking for an opinion on this, was having a survey for parents and students. So it's just a general thing, and I can't print this out because it is electronic, but just some basic things on communication, organization, how parents felt about it, 1 through 5, professionalism of the coach.
I mean, what's 1 through 5, like informed, 1 being informed, or 5 being very uninformed, or?
2 needs improvement.
1 is seriously below expectation,
Okay, I
and
see
5
what
is
you see there.
exemplary. So
Okay.
there's that, and made one up for the students too. Oops. For the athletes. Just some simple questions. The coach allowed me to feel safe, positive influence.
Is this the one that you had them do in their social?
We have not
studies?
had them do
Oh,
it.
okay.
This is part of the evaluation. Could be part of the evaluation. I don't know, is there about 15 questions here? I can send it to all of you if you want. Coaches are respectful. Is always prepared.
And what was that one? There's an
What's that?
unfinished number. My coaches were respectful towards official and our,
Incomplete.
okay.
Positive example. High expectations. I guess the point is, I mean, how do you feel about having parents and coaches
It's good.
involved in it? Do we even want to know? Because obviously there's going to be some negative there.
Yeah, but I think,
Feedback's always good.
yeah.
Go back
I
to the
think-
first question. I mean, the first question is what?
The coach provided an environment that allowed me to feel safe during practices and games.
All right, keep going. I'm just trying to do a rifle until.
And just from a perspective of leadership, we need to know. And a positive culture, good working group, whatever organization it is, there's great communication, but not every program, organization has good communication. So when that doesn't exist, that's what it is.
Well, if you get 1 or 2 that you're not connecting with, I mean, not everybody takes information the same way either. So as a coach, wouldn't you want to know that you might have to adjust some of your communication or styles to better encompass everything? I mean, like I said, feedback is good, and is there going to be negative stuff? Absolutely, but I mean, you got to grow from it versus get scared of it, right?
I mean, but if you had 1 negative out of how many of these surveys, I mean, that would be.
But that's just it, maybe it's that one kid that you're not communicating right with, and you know that constructively that, hey, maybe I gotta speak a little bit differently to this one because he doesn't hear me the same, or, I mean, it might be behavioral or something else, but you're
Well-
right. I mean, it's, you don't know until you know.
But these surveys, are they gonna have names on them?
There should be.
Yeah, they won't know who that
Yeah.
person
Well,
You want
they're
anonymous.
is. Yeah, but you won't know who that
Then you
negative person is. then.
People, yeah, then people can have
I mean, we can
them.
put it on there, it's not a problem.
I don't think we should have names on there.
No,
But,
no.
so
For a
if,
company,
if
business would be
a
different,
coach
but
is
at this
to
level,
get like
you know,
49% of the team thinks they're not doing such a hot job, who has a discussion with the coach about that?
That's, right,
Yeah,
that's administration will use this as a tool, right?
I just wanted to be clear.
Then it goes from what, there to the principal, superintendent, and then
Yeah.
to the board.
All right.
We should never get involved in this level of it unless it's
They should
something
be.
criminal or something, you know, but.
They should be able to take care of it.
All right, so moving on, that being part of the evaluation that might come before you. The other thing that we discussed the other night that we didn't come to a consensus on was the tobacco and alcohol violations,
Page, what was that, Jeff?
38. So we talked a little bit about the old policy that is on page, actually it's not 38. Probably better examples on 44, sorry. That is, it's basically the same. 38 is tobacco and 44 is alcohol and drugs. So either way, our first violation says the Arrowhead Center's competency counselor will provide 2 to 4 sessions of counseling. At the time that this policy was written, the school actually had somebody from Arrowhead Center in the building become a competency counselor. We don't anymore. We are still semi-connected to the Arrowhead Center and can send somebody over there. There is a cost to that. $100 a session, I think it was. I guess the question that surrounded it the last time is, should we be mandating that when we don't provide that service? A. And the other issue that we talked about is the punishment for violation in itself. And just to jog your memory, our policy is stiffer than the high school league recommendations, which, so be it, that's fine. Where we run into problems with that is in our cooperative sports. Let's use boys hockey as an example. Mesabi East follows the high school league version, so they're 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We're 4 weeks, 6 weeks out for the year. So
And
there's-
counseling on top of it.
and counseling on top of it, so I mean, and I'm not saying the stiffer penalty is bad, I'm just saying that we do run into a problem if a Mesabi East kid got caught and, you know,
He's back in 2 games.
he's back in 2 games and our kids are out 4, I don't know.
I think it should go along with the Minnesota State High School League's guidelines.
Yep.
Yeah, and recommendations, yeah.
Because to Kelly's point, you know, we're forcing people, the way that this policy is written, we're forcing people to go and
Incur an
See.
expense.
incur an expense that might not be able to afford it, or might not have insurance, might not be able to pay for it.
And we were talking, we were gonna provide them the resources, the tools to get out of
Yeah.
whatever addiction, though.
If
It's
they-
just not a counseling,
Right.
it's not a,
We'll give them the resources if they need it. I mean, if
Well,
they
they-
want to,
they-
if they want
well,
to,
they
if the
need
parents
it.
want to seek it,
well,
Well,
they,
what-
I mean, you need to have at least that sit down with a counselor, is that
Yeah,
what we're
that's what
talking?
we talked about,
Because they need it if they're making those choices.
just to check, like a
Yes.
check-in with the school counselor. To see if they need any resources or.
Right. Or to, just to provide it.
Right.
It should be, hey, we provide this, not saying you have to provide them the resources, phone numbers or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, addresses.
I mean, do our school counselors do that? I mean, I'll just be straight, when I was in school, I thought our school counselors were useless. We did have a drug dependency counselor on staff that I spent a lot of time with, but I mean, as far as our counselors in school, they were completely useless. It was more academic and curriculum.
I would like to hope that times have changed,
Yeah,
but
Yeah, went on before.
Um, this
So
So, and I agree with your thing, is that, I mean, if a student has a problem, I think the school plays some kind of role model role into that. But, I mean, to my thing, is just to throw them onto a school counselor, I mean, is that, do they have the resources, or should we put something in place that's
Well,
better? I don't know. I
a
mean,
school
that's,
counselor could easily get those resources by calling the county and, but if the school counselor finds out that there's a student that just had a violation or whatever, they can get those resources and meet with the student and say, hey, what's going on.
I agree to have the resources, but,
We could have a policy, right, that this is how the school council handles the situation.
yeah, I mean, I agree that they can if they're that type of person, I guess my point is, but my experience through school, there was 3-4 school counselors through my career through the school, and like I said, I thought they were useless. And it was the chemical dependency counselor, the ones that really cared and tried and were empathetic to that situation versus our school counselors, so that's what I'm just saying. I mean, I don't want to try to put a resource involved and have a kid get lost with that resource if that's the only thing we're going to do, if we're going to make that attempt, right?
Right.
Well, I feel the need to just let it be known that I'm sure the school counselor here is very capable and does a wonderful job at the job that they have.
We're not saying.
And I'm not
Yeah.
pointing any fingers at anybody specifically, I'm
No.
just saying a school counselor typically is, somebody academic and curriculum and whatever, and yes, they're a counselor, but
We could obviously vote on some sort of policy, this is how we handle the situation, and it makes the counselor's job very easy. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's just a talk with, hey, this is when, because if it's not a drug dependency counselor anymore, all right, let's give that counselor the tools, the policy is how we handle
or
it.
direction.
Just direction, yeah.
Well, and I don't think we need a policy for that
Yeah.
necessarily. I mean, I guess we're going over all these job descriptions and it could be just something, I mean, it could be just general, that.
I mean, to be frank, I mean, our communities are full of drunks, drug addicts, I mean, all kind, I mean,
I
it's,
think that's the world. But
no, I said our community, but I'm just saying that. The point is we have a lot of problems in our community, the reason why kids have problems. I mean, good, bad, or ugly, and, I experienced it as a child, I grew up into it too, and I'm speaking from an empathetic position, and my point is, if we're gonna go to that extreme to whatever, I mean, let's actually, again, try to be a positive, I don't wanna make an attempt and fall short on just because we wanna formalize and change something, if that makes sense, right? I mean, it's either go all the way or not.
Well, I just think it should be, if, something like this happens where there's a violation, I think it should be the counselors, if it's in his description, to provide the resources for this person if he or she to seek help. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and say, here's, not the detox center, but the, Airhood Treatment Center, whatever. If that person.
phone numbers are.
Yeah, phone numbers and.
Crisis hotlines, things,
Yeah, absolutely.
everything,
One more thing on that, if you flip to page 46, harassment and hazing. After determination of violation, student show evidence in writing that he or she has received counseling from a community agency or professional individual, such as school counselor or psychologist, for 2 to 4 sessions of counseling. The 2 to 4 sessions must be completed before the student is eligible to participate.
That was an addendum
That
to
was
our,
previous, right?
that's an addendum to our disciplinary action, right?
Yep.
So you could remove that, basically.
Well, this is harassment and hazing.
Oh.
We're not dealing with drugs and alcohol anymore.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, sorry about that.
The issue with that wording is it's kind of, obviously not all harassment and hazing is identical, but it kind of is loose, and I don't like that last sentence where it says the 2 to 4 sessions must be completed before the student is eligible to participate.
So you quantify if it's supposed to be 4 sessions or 2
Yeah,
sessions.
I mean, it's, kind of leaves it open so that one kid might get one thing and one kid might get the other thing, and
That's
Well,
not fair.
well, and the other thing about that, I mean, what if they see a counselor and the counselor says, they made a, they made a critical error, they're not requiring 4 sessions or even 2 sessions. What if 1 session with the student is sufficient?
Can't you just say that they get evaluated by a school counselor or psychologist and upon recommendations from that? Or do you not even want to leave it that open because it could be,
Well,
I mean, forcing a kid to go through
there's
sessions.
a couple
I
of
mean,
problems in my
depends
mind,
on-
and one is, this is not something that has traditionally been, at least in my career, been in the area of school counseling.
No.
Well, it's kind of what I was
This is,
just talking about in the drug and alcohol thing.
This
you
is,
know, I mean.
could potentially be criminal activity, and this is.
I'm not
sexual
saying that they
harassment's
couldn't do it, but I'm
changed.
just saying that they haven't.
That alcohol and drug thing though, I mean, they can sit down and say, hey, what's going on? Maybe that's pretty easy. And here are some phone numbers if you need
Yeah, that
help.
is
That-
an issue, but this is
so-
a little different here with the hazing and
Right.
harassment. I mean, you don't know what.
And there's certainly different levels of, well, types of harassment, but then levels too, where, because harassment can be assault. It's all legality, it's how the victim feels. And so the 2 to 4, I agree with you. You have 2 to 4, that's really vague.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
So is there any state statutes on?
No.
I mean, this is all under the scope of athletics, though. I mean, there's
Yes.
got to be hazing and harassment. I mean, don't we have a policy already for like that?
We have a policy for that, and
I
it
don't
is
know.
also equally as vague, and there aren't any. One of the things that, I came from a school district that had guidelines for punishments, suspensions, whatever you wanna call it. Like, it was pretty cookie cutter, and if you went up to somebody and you were constantly harassing them, you looked on the sheet, and the first offense, you got 2 days OSS or 2 days IS or whatever. We don't have that here. And there's good and bad to that. I mean, because like I said, and Derek said also, I mean, there's different levels of harassment. Not all harassment is the same. So it does give us a little more latitude in choosing that punishment, but at the same time, consistency has some merit too. So I don't know that we're gonna come up with an answer to that. I just wanted to point that out to you tonight, that's another area that my administrators have struggled with, as far as being consistent with it.
Can you look into that and try to get some recommendations for that? Or don't you think there's really much to look into? We just have to make it up?
Yeah, well, there's lots of stuff out there, and like I said, most of the stuff that I've seen, there's school, like say it said, if you caught harassing another student, you get 2 days OSS. If you get 2 days OSS, you're not repeating those 2 days. And you have to, and then there's team rules. I mean, if you're not in practice, you're not playing, so I mean, there are consequences that go with that. Here, so I mean, at least the student knows this is what's coming. Whereas here, 2 to 4 sessions must be completed before the athlete is eligible to participate again. I mean, that could be tomorrow, or that could be 3 months from now.
So something more concrete.
Yeah,
And you could, this is an idea, you could break it into direct or indirect, so if I'm having a conversation with the person that's sitting here, and someone's offended over here, it's indirect, it is potentially harassment if it's sexual, religious, race related. But to be harassing someone at that person, there is more intent there, and so there are different levels of harassment. I'm speaking about my faith and someone's offended. If they were offended, then that is harassment. The person may not have intended to offend that person, but it is still harassment.
yeah, I mean, well, believe me, you see it all when you work in a school.
Yeah.
And everybody's innocent, it's like Shawshank Redemption around here. But,
I mean, so like the first violation, I mean, can you determine the level of harassment? I mean, is there any way of measuring that level of harassment by any?
There is, I don't know that you can ever quantify it, harassment, because it,
I mean,
the
harassment could be
same,
if
the same,
someone's, I mean, if someone's
if I said
pushing
something to
somebody
Derek
down.
that was offensive,
Right.
and said the same thing to Mike, I mean, they may take it different.
It's feelings.
I mean, yeah, Mike doesn't have any feelings, but Derek does, so I mean, it's not a big deal to Mike, but it's a huge deal to Derek, so I mean, it's, you know, I don't know, it's,
I mean, really,
I don't know. what it is.
I guess really you gotta just focus on what the remedy is of it, and, I mean, you clean that up to something not so vague, and
Yeah,
take it as it comes. It's still gonna be a case-by-case basis, no matter what's in there.
There's, MSBA, I don't know if y'all have been receiving these emails about the sexual harassment training, because our culture as a, or society is changing. This past year was a huge change for people deciding to speak out about it. So they're anticipating, especially in colleges, and I would assume high schools too, there's gonna be an increase. If we haven't already seen it, we probably are going to.
Well, I just feel like there needs to be something more concrete. I don't know if there's something that you can look into and have.
yeah, I guess I'm kind of, at this very moment, I mean, I'm kind of a supporter of the, you know, you harass somebody, you're out of school for 2 days, or 3 days, or whatever else we decide. And like I said, there are team consequences that go with that if you're not in school, I mean, you're not participating.
So do you think you could have something like that in written form and we can look at it for
Sure.
vote? Because I'm assuming we're gonna have to vote.
Yeah, this all has to be passed at some point.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think at that point, I mean, you gotta probably take a look at our overall school policy for bullying and harassment, and like you said, trickle down into this policy, right? I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Mhm.
So when these students get this, I mean, is it the coaches that explain, you know, here, kids, you know, this is important, if you want to be on the team.
That's
And you
the
go-
idea behind this, yeah, is that
I mean,
we'll actually use it.
Right, and like, for me, hazing, as a program, as a coach, you can have your own set of rules too, culture. So like hazing, you know, it talks about the 2 to 4 sessions, but if I want to have more of a penalty on that individual for the sake of my program, then I can, this is the rules, the time, but guess what, yeah, you're not gonna, don't think you're gonna play. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, and one of the things that we mentioned somewhere in this 80 pages is that that's fine if coaches do that, but you just need to make that very clear to students at the beginning of the season that
Yep.
my expectations are a little higher than that. And
And
that's fine.
certainly have them
I mean,
written and signed.
we had a situation come up that, in one of the sports this year where it wasn't explained to them, and a kid got caught drinking, and the coach wanted to toss him out the team. Well, that would have been fine if they'd explained to him at the beginning of the season that, hey, if you get caught drinking, you're not on this team anymore. But that wasn't done, so I mean, you can't just make up a rule after that.
Mid-season, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you explain this to us, and going through with it, you know, through this, it should be done at the coaches level with the participants of that sport.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, having this, the coaches that go over the MSP, the Minnesota State High School League rules, we talk about that, we follow that, but we also, now that we have this parameter, you know, something I mentioned earlier, we're gonna, as coaches, Eveleth-Gilbert, we're being evaluated now, and we have everything we need, so, I mean, this is a lot to take in, but it's a good thing,
We need to discuss the assessment piece too.
Yeah, is there anything that you want to
Well,
talk about there?
My biggest thing is who is assessing the coaches?
Yeah, I agree.
So the athletic director is gonna have to attend more games and things like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't think more, I mean, our current one is there quite a bit. I guess maybe at certain things more million, but yeah, you would have to distribute it all.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a function of, you know, we have one athletic director going out, and when we bring the next one in, it needs to be clear that that's part of the job, because currently that's not the case.
And we have to ensure that they know how to do these assessments and what they're looking for. Make sure they're properly trained or whatever needs to be done, so they're doing their best job as well.
Any other things, comments on that? All right, ready to move on?
Yeah.
Job description, so we had a number of them that got tabled the other night. I'm just gonna roll through these as the issues that came up. So the first one, up on the board, there's groundskeeper. The issue was letter F, provide assistance to other specialists and custodial personnel as directed. We probably want that to say, can be assigned custodial duties, will be assigned custodial duties as directed. Is that right? Change of sentence. Yes, that's all right. Library media specialist. I don't know that there was anything specifically. 50 pounds, I think, was on the list.
Yeah.
We did check around a little bit. Most other ones, any teaching position around here is 25. So, I mean, we can
Change that?
change that. That's fine.
That
Mathematics skills came up too. The only thing about, as far as the teacher and the media specialist or any other licensed teacher for that matter, is that the reason that that's popping into job descriptions now is, I know that Mrs. Bauman said that, you know, they have to take a math test before they get a license, but that's not entirely true of some of them. Community experts are becoming more prevalent. We've been lucky, we only have one. Most districts have 4 or 5 or 6 right now, and they don't even need a college degree, let alone have mathematical skills. So I mean, I would recommend we leave it in there just for that purpose. I mean, if you're a licensed teacher, you've taken a math test, I get all that, I mean, it's fine.
I guess my question is, what do they have to do to demonstrate the ability?
I don't have an answer for that.
So I guess if we're gonna have that, if we're gonna have demonstrate the ability to apply appropriate math skills in performing daily routines, if we're not.
Well, maybe that should be part of the interview process of, I mean, if we did interview somebody that wasn't licensed, we had to go with a community expert route. Maybe that's part of the interview process, you have to demonstrate mathematical ability.
Yeah, it's under that, teachers maintain mathematical, ability, community experts demonstrate your mathematical ability.
I just, if we're gonna put it in there, I just wanna be clear on what it entails, so expectations are there are known, I guess.
Is that all right to just do it in the interview? If we need be? I mean, like I said, if you're a licensed teacher, you had to pass that, I don't remember the name of it anymore, but changes all the time. I mean, that's a
If you're a
no-brainer,
community expert person,
but, I mean, if you
have to demonstrate.
is there any other thing in those?
Forget the name of the system, but the media specialist they talked about, asked the question, is the training for access to the software, is there training out there that one can take to then be able to access and be able to understand the systems that they operate?
Yes.
And they said yes, so like under that job description, if we're gonna go with the pair B, is that something that we'd have in there, like that we provide them?
Are we moving on, Kara B?
Unless you want to stay behind, I mean, got
No.
anything else on teacher?
No.
Good.
I don't think so.
All right, moving on to pair B.
My apologies.
Sure.
So I'll ask the question, Jim,
Sure.
what's the difference between a para A, para B, and a para C? I
A
mean,
para A works with a student with disabilities,
Okay.
one-on-one. A para B, if you approve this job description, would be someone that works in the library. And a para C is also somebody that could work in the library.
Where do clerks fall in here?
I have no idea, it was in the contract long before any of us were here.
Okay, so we don't
It's
have
in the
anybody.
ASME contract.
So do we have anybody that's hired as a clerk,
We have, well, I don't know about clerk, but we have
as a job description of a clerk, I guess?
We have a current employee listed as a clerk.
Yeah.
clerk C, yes, over in Gilbert.
So I ask the question again, what are the differences in languages between the para A, B, and C? I mean, what are the language differences between the three?
The para A, obviously, like I said, I mean, it's a one-on-one, works with students with disabilities.
Okay.
The B isn't something that we've previously had. It's in the union contract, but we haven't had a job description for it. Whereas the C we have, and that's been somebody that works in the library.
So, I mean, okay, then how is that, I mean, can you get
We haven't redone the C yet.
so is the B based off of the C then?
Uh-huh.
So then what will change on C if this is based off of?
We probably won't hire C's anymore, once the one that we have retires. There really shouldn't be a difference. It's the
Do we have any
position that,
para Cs working for us?
we have one, yes.
In Gilbert, he said.
Okay. And that's the clerk, right? No.
Clerk, paraprofessional,
Okay.
we haven't hired, you know.
I'm just learning all this stuff, so.
The concern was they're not gonna have the body of work, the 4-year experience.
Absolutely, there's no question about that. However,
How do we train them up is, if we can train them up and have that plan in place, then that's a win-win, because we have someone that's qualified, someone that's capable, and there's no reason not to.
Are we, I mean, we're not having that discussion necessarily right now, though, right? The para B and the librarian discussions is just approving the job description?
we're looking at job descriptions, but I mean, it is kind of tied in, because if you don't want to do the paraprofessional B, then there's,
What other use would you have for a para B then?
that wouldn't,
I mean, ask.
So this is directly geared towards a media specialist, right?
yes,
I mean, ASME's been asking for job descriptions for this for 3 cycles now. I mean,
Yes.
because they want one, and here we are, right? So, if this flips the bill, I mean, we pass it as a job description, and I guess the other side of that is whether we want to staff it, right, or hire for it. I mean, that's kind of,
So that would come for vote.
and we kind of decided we wanted to go that route, right, with media specialists. Huh?
informally. yeah.
Right, the
It's
consensus
informal.
was, yep. So, but, I mean, there's still 2 separate parts of the same thing, I guess, right?
So when we're just talking about the job description for para B, that's what I'm getting at, is for the expectations or prerequisite training. I don't know what that training is, but the librarian said that there is training out there, but it is through the school, that they can receive, that can prepare, and it's not a 4-year degree. It's something that gives them access, and that would be a good qualification, so now when they come in first day, they can access the software. That was the biggest thing, they're not gonna have access to what they need or experience, no, it's the access to the tools to actually keep things organized.
Well, there's 2 parts. I mean, yes, there is the access to being able to, it's the Arrowhead Library System. And yes, they will provide training, they have. I have 2 people that have gotten it. The other part of that is keeping maintaining her point was maintaining the stacks, the collection. And I don't know, and I would concur with her, I mean, that is an issue, you know, as far as ordering books every year, I mean, it is gonna be an issue, but I think it's something that we can work around. Like I said, I mean, the board can decide to hire another media specialist, I honestly, I don't believe we would ever find one. I don't.
Just to be straight, I mean, we have a media specialist, I mean, can't she train paramedics?
I had Arrowhead Library System come in and do that, so they're, the ones that, the libraries are up and running now, we didn't close it when the other one retired. And at this point, I mean, on February 12th, the board's just gonna have to decide, you know, do you wanna continue doing with what I got patched in there temporarily, or do you wanna do something else? And either way is fine.
So we hired, when we hired,
We haven't hired anybody.
oh, so we have nobody working in either campus as a paramedic?
We do
Oh,
temporarily, but the board has to make a decision on February 12th whether they're gonna continue that,
Make it
or if they wanna hire a media
Oh.
specialist.
Basically, we have subs in there.
I got subs in there holding the door open, I mean.
okay.
I'm really torn on this one. I'm torn on this one, I don't know what's
Yeah.
best. It's-
Like I said, I mean, on February 12th, you'll have to decide.
Yeah.
I don't know what's torn, we have a media specialist and we just hire some helpers and be done. I mean, if it works, it works, if it don't, well, we adjust later, I mean, that's my
Well-
thoughts, but.
with, you know, with that thought in mind, why wouldn't we advertise for a librarian or media specialist and see if we get anybody, and if we don't get anybody, then go the route of a para-B.
You're saying push it,
Yeah,
we could have it on the agenda for the next meeting?
to post it. and-
We'd have to vote to, right, for advertise it?
Well, the price, well, for one, it was the cost,
Because it costs a
and
lot.
then
to
for B, it
advertise.
was, if we put 2 paras in there, we could save some money, plus we could staff it 100% versus what we staffed it before. I mean-
Significant, the salary was,
How much was the difference, Jeff, in dollar amount between
I can have 2 paras in full-time for half of what we were paying before.
Fully staffed,
Fully staffed.
because that position, the 4-year degree, that they're coming in ready to go, everything, folks are organized people, yeah.
Is there any confidentiality stuff that, I mean, as far as, remember, we listened to, I don't know who the lady was, that spoke, Luzika spoke in regards to having, had these para-Bs having access to that sort of data and stuff, I mean, is there,
I'm not familiar with what that would be. I mean, like I said, when their library came in, it wasn't an issue for them.
can,
They're the ones that are in the systems.
I just don't wanna get into something that, I mean, that might be a data privacy breach or something where somebody had access to something and they shouldn't, and
I mean, I'll just say that if Arrowhead Library is, you know, running our libraries, which I wasn't privy to, I mean, I sit on the Gilbert Library Board, actually, we're going to be meeting here shortly, and we talked about all that HIPAA and privacy stuff with our system. I mean, employees are employees, I mean, they have access to that information, so, I mean, if we have a bona fide employee, I mean, we have 2 over there in Gilbert that are just off the street employees. They have to go through background checks, they're not Illinois, but they have just as much privy to the information as the librarian does.
Was HIPAA training something that was entailed in that?
I'm not even sure what, I'm not sure.
So,
That can be done in 24 hours. HIPAA training, online.
so that's just, you know, that.
Anything else on that?
what about the weight on?
What?
On this para B.
Yep.
We were on para B, we talked about the physical demands, the employee
Oh,
needs to
yeah.
sit or stand for extended periods of time. It was kind of far, I mean, everybody was in agreement, it's kind of far-fetched that they had the ability to push and pull weights up to 75 pounds.
You wanna drop that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be parts of books that are gonna be, how do you determine what something weighs 75 pounds? I mean, how much?
I think we had
Just a
talked
number.
about, a general statement
Yeah.
about doing, you know, light lifting or
Yeah.
heavy lifting or,
Just-
The only thing is, the insurance company's gonna want a number figure on there, because, I'll go back to my example, if you had surgery and you had your appendix removed, and the doctor says you can go back to work, but you can't lift 5 pounds.
Right.
So that covers the school. I mean, if that person, if we let them back in and they're on a 5-pound restriction, and their job says that they need to be able to lift 25 pounds, they can't be here. So that if they come back and they get hurt, it's not on our dime.
Yeah, but that would have to be, I would think that would be explained to them.
No, we talked about that,
It's not,
or you ask someone if you're
Right.
unable to
Right,
lift
seek
at that.
assistance.
We had talked about that in one of them, that it's expected you request assistance.
Mm-hmm.
It's in one of the job descriptions that we had that discussion.
I mean, if they have a,
In the
like,
event someone is injured.
I mean, I've been cleared to go back to work, and I only had like a 15-pound weight limit. But I was able to work, I just wasn't able to lift
And
that
that,
amount.
and that's what Jeff is saying, is that if we have these declarations in our job descriptions, I mean, then we as the employer are protected from them. You can't push a cart that's more than 75 pounds because it doesn't fit your restriction, you know, I mean,
Yeah, but that person,
if they come back to work and do something that they're not supposed to do.
yes,
At least we've told them, had that conversation with them, that you can't do that.
and
I
then from,
mean, okay, you can come back to work, but you're not.
but if that, whatever,
if
if
you-
that person lifts over the weight, they're just as much culpable.
But they're not.
right.
They go on workman's comp then if it happens here, regardless of if they're
We
not.
live in a world where we sue McDonald's for hot coffee, and,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta remember too, this is for workman's comps too, where they say, are you cleared for work? Well, this is my job description, and I can't, you know, so it's a tool for a lot of things.
If they're medically able to lift or push or pull such weight, expected that they request assistance from staff or whoever, you know.
So then, they would have to have a doctor's excuse that, yes, they can come back to work. Otherwise, you don't want them on the property for the fact of, you know, oh, you're on a 5-pound weight restriction, okay, you can't push the 75-pound cart,
Right?
or lift the 40 pounds, or,
It's the real world we live in, yeah.
so you're saying we need a specific number for insurance reasons, is what you're
What's the
saying?
number? Doesn't matter if it's 75, 25, or 5, but there just needs to be a number there.
I would just say,
I mean,
I
honestly.
mean, if a cart, I think a cart of books would probably be on wheels is a lot lighter than lifting a box.
Well,
of
I mean,
40
all of this
pounds.
stuff, I don't think we should shoot in the door, or shoot, you know, throw a dart at the wall because someone's might complain. I think this is something where I think Jeff should go back to our insurance agent and say, what are industry standards for these situations? And then there's no, well, the board made this decision this year and that decision the next year. It comes from something that's kind of an industry standard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's what this
I
is
mean,
all
but
for.
We do that.
But, you know, I mean, that is such an open window, you know, as far as somebody coming back to work if they have a weight restriction. I mean, it could be anything. They could trip on something, there could have been a cord over there that was tripped. I mean, it could be anything.
No, that is workman's comp at that point.
That's the world we live in.
I'm just
They don't
saying,
even
I'm
have-
just saying you could slip outside. I mean, on ice, you could, I mean, it's,
It happens, Bill.
I know it does. I know
I
it
mean,
does.
it
but-
literally, I mean, they could be up to go for a smoke break and they slip. I mean, it's,
And
Right.
schools are well insured and have deep pockets, so it happens to us. Anything else on it? I'll call the insurance dude and
And see what,
see what they say. All right, I think we're done with that part. You got any committees?
well, are we done with just those ones?
Yeah,
Because
there was-
I guess I
Oh,
want to.
you got more?
Well, there
Well,
was-
I want to go back to that secretary deal.
Oh, I forgot about
Yeah.
that. I got that.
I really have,
The students in the
an
office.
issue with the students in the office. I was there the other day and a situation came up and any of those students that were in the office at the time that I was in there, if they heard any rumblings amongst students, they would have known what was being talked about. And I have an issue with that. I mean, even with kids sitting right outside, the principal's office, and the principal has a student in their office, it's pretty thin walls, you can hear what's going on. So I have an issue with that. So if we can, and I don't feel that that should be in the job description of the secretary. If we can look at how we can rectify that by staffing somebody in there and making it where they're doing, you know, part-time, part of the time they're a lunch aide or something, and part of the time they're manning the students that aren't behaving appropriately. I think that that would be
So what is,
in
I
our
mean,
best interest.
like, you want someone with like a holding cell?
Well,
Or is
no,
that-
like detention, I mean, there was detention.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm trying to think is that there's kids in the,
That's the wrong word.
kids in the office, I mean, I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around what you're saying, that kids in the office that you don't want them sitting in the like if a principal's got like 3 kids they're having talked to and,
It doesn't
No,
happen
no.
like that though, Mike.
No.
What happens
well, that's
is,
what I'm trying to ask, I mean.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain. What happens is a student is misbehaving in class and,
He gets into
or,
the office, right?
or they don't get to eat lunch down in the lunchroom at lunchtime because they've been misbehaving. They go up and sit in the main office there, and the
You see, they're
secretary.
getting punished, they're
The
getting
the
sent to the office.
secretary is, in her job description, it's saying that the secretary's job is to supervise those students.
I mean,
And when she's trying to get her work done, and like I said, well, confidential information is
I mean-
being heard by those students,
I
it's
guess,
just not, it's not appropriate.
I guess if you look at this on section 4 or whatever, G, it says, support staff, students and coworkers in a confidential and cooperative manner, function highly in maintain an office work habits, and concentrating during constant interruptions while promoting a pleasant cooperative building atmosphere. Well, how can that happen in an office when she's trying to answer the phone? She's trying to, you know, people are coming in to see her, and you got all these disruptive kids in that office listening to confidential information as she's, as the parent is talking to the secretary, as she's on the phone. I don't believe those kids they do not need to be in that office. They need to be somewhere else, other than that office. Okay?
I certainly don't disagree with you, but it's been rough
That's-
finding people to do it.
That's why I'm saying, like, if
Do we
if
have
it can be
ISS
combined-
anymore?
We used to.
We've been trying over in Gilbert, we've advertised all year long, can't find anyone. We had somebody there last year and she's in the office now.
Well, part of that issue, my understanding is it's being advertised for like a 3-hour position. And a lot of people aren't going to take it, you know, I mean.
That's all of our part-time positions, right?
But I'm asking, is there something that we can combine so that person could be there for 6 hours? Is there, you know, like I said, can they be a lunch aide or,
They're a lunch aide, no, they're a lunch aide during the prime time. for-
or library,
Being
helping the
detention.
library or anything? I mean, I don't know all the positions.
So, I mean, that being said, if I understand you correctly, if we don't want, you don't want a secretary to be in charge basically of supervising students that might be being punished or behavior issues. That being said, we have 3 of them, so we would have to staff 3 separate ISS rooms, basically.
Well, my understanding is it's
All
not
day?
as much of it's not an issue as much in the high school. I believe that's what Angie had said, didn't she, during that meeting?
But that's the problem with that situation. I mean, one day everybody might be good, but tomorrow you might have one kid at 2 o'clock and, you know, so I'm saying, how do you staff that?
Then we need to figure out
Yeah.
something else to do,
Yeah.
because it shouldn't be, the office shouldn't be the detention.
No, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, I'm just saying that, I mean,
I know,
it's a variable situation, and I get what you're trying to say, but how do we staff that without having a full-time designated person there? You know, I mean, in the Franklin right now, you know, we took a little bit of the burden off the principal and we put a dean of students in there, so there might be some flexibility for that position to monitor, you know, that situation, but in the high school, there's still gonna be troublemakers in the high school. Whether there's one or a lot, it doesn't
The
matter.
office situation in Gilbert and high school are 2 concerns.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, I mean, it is.
Well,
Can you bring some
Sorry.
recommendations back to
But-
us, Jeff, how to get those kids out of that office and do something and find maybe a 6-hour employee that would be able to handle that, to do maybe lunch aid or playground aid and, you know, something to get those kids out of that office? I mean,
I could, however, we have thought about that lots in the last 3 years, and there really isn't a good answer to it. Franklin's a little bit different because you have playground aids, and we've done all right with staffing that room that way, like you're talking about. The high school doesn't have recess, and it's not, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you're either hiring somebody for 6 hours to be in an ISS room all day, and maybe some days they don't have anybody, and some days they do. And the same at Gilbert, I mean, I just,
what's the cost?
I'll get that to you.
Okay.
Minimum $20,000 for just a pair, right? I mean, if you want to say at that level, or an aid.
I just think we need to brainstorm on,
I mean, I get it, because when I was in school, there was an ISS room. I mean, you got kicked out of class, you go report to the office, they'd give you a pass to go sit in ISS for whatever. I mean, obviously, we're not there anymore, but that ISS room was always staffed.
my concern is just the confidential information and the secretary being able to get her job done. You know, I've also been in there and dropping things off when there's kids in detention, or, you know, in the lunchroom for disciplinary reasons, we're throwing erasers. And, you know, and the secretary is talking to parents. And so it's, I don't know.
Be about $12,000 for each site.
That's 6 hours a day?
If you can find.
If you pay them 10 to 15 hours, which is what each rate is, or
Excuse me.
I think it'd be well worth the money. I do, honestly. I mean, because it just creates a little bit less chaos at the point of I mean, it's the first place that the parents and visitors and professionals come and see, and you got all these disruptive kids in there, and it's just total chaos. I mean, it doesn't look good for,
you'll find an argument for me, but I just, that's what the board wants to do. It's fine.
what's your take on it, maybe? Eric, Mike?
I don't know what the answer is, I just,
I mean, it's fine if we can find somebody. I mean, it's just money. I mean, we got money. I mean, that's what everything comes down to. I mean, I guess really, we should be talking about this in the context of the job description. I mean, and then, you know, if you want to rip that language out of there and finalize the job description, and what's the indirect of that? The indirect is, it creates another situation that we have to deal with. I mean, put it in that perspective, but.
I would like to take X out of the secretary's job description.
Okay.
X and,
Anything else?
And the supervisory responsibilities would be coming out of there too then. Supervisor monitors students in the office area.
yep, V,
Which one's that?
V,
B.
Well, you'd almost have to leave that in there because there's
5.
students coming in and out of
That's-
school and class, and I
As
mean,
long as it's,
if you take that
Said that's-
behavioral side of it out, I mean,
Right.
the rest of it is still, secretaries give the kids passes to class and that kind of stuff.
and making sure they're signing in.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's got to be.
You're right, yeah.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay. Hold on.
So moving on to the committee thing.
Yeah.
So I asked the superintendent if he would put committees on the agenda for today. More specifically, the district advisory committee and the staff development committee. Just because I want to make sure that those are in place and that they're functioning properly. And if they're not, is there anything that administration needs from us as a board to review that and make the changes that's necessary? So I guess this conversation is just strictly about who needs to be on these committees and what is their function, is basically what the discussion is. So who needs to be on the committees and what their responsibilities, or what the role of those committees are. So do you want to talk a little bit on that, or do you want me to?
Well, to answer your first question, no, they're not functioning properly right now. Part of that is a symptom of our current dysfunction of people coming and going. And I don't know what we can do to solve that issue in the short term.
Is there anything that the board needs to do?
Well, I mean, we need to, yeah, we need to form that committee and get it moving. I mean, that's what we need to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, if, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think you do.
Yeah, I have. some.
There's various aspects that need to be on there. I mean, if anyone has recommendations for parents or community members that should be on those, that I would certainly be, that would be helpful. I can take care of the staff part of it.
Okay. So, the district advisory committee, as far as who needs to be on it. It needs to include teachers, parents, support staff, students, and other community residents. And it shall comprise of at least 2/3 of advisory committee members. Whenever possible, parents and other community residents shall comprise at least 2/3 of the advisory committee.
All right, so here's, if every board member gave me a community member or parent that they would like to see on that, I'll contact them, just give me a name. And so that would put us at, if everyone has one, that's 7. And then I probably have, I continue to have a building administrator on there, which in this case would probably be Angie Williams. Pick a teacher from each building probably, which is gonna put us
You
over the
will
mark.
pick the teacher.
Yeah, I will. And we'll find a support staff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just.
And there was one, was a parent and/or
Community member.
community member?
And, okay.
And we'll support staff, would you
It's-
consider like half,
Parent.
anything and a half, pass me?
Anything
And, or
else.
parent and or.
Teacher, okay, it says a district advisory committee, to the extent possible, shall reflect the diversity of the district and its school sites, include teachers, parents, support staff, students, and other community residents. Whenever possible, parents and other community residents shall comprise at least 2/3 of the advisory committee. So, can you send out,
I need 5 spots, because I'll have one teacher from every building.
okay,
I'll pick a support staff, that's 4, plus an administrator is 5. So we'll have 5 from the school.
and you're asking the school board to potentially nominate
Parents and
a community member or parent to participate?
And that doesn't really put us at 2/3, but if everyone gets one, because it'd be 7 and 5.
Would be, so it would be more than we need.
No, then,
We'd have more than we need for the 2/3 of community members and
not quite.
parents. Okay,
We wouldn't
so,
quite have 2/3.
so make sure that we have 2/3 of that.
So we need 8, 8.
8 and 5 would be 2.
Do you want to maybe find out if a principal wants to nominate a parent or a
Yeah,
community member,
That's fine.
or,
I'll have Angie pick another one, so we'll get 8.
So it says it shall reflect the diversity of the district and its school site, so you'd have a teacher from here and a teacher from Gilbert, is that how?
One on each site,
One
yeah.
on each site, okay.
Probably ages, diversity, age groups too.
Okay. So there'll be somebody nominated from the 7 of us. And then you will have 8.
Yeah, Angie does one.
If we can find people to participate.
Yeah.
We did the strategic planning a couple of years ago, and that was like pulling teeth to get people to come in and participate.
Well, that's all you do is nominate them, I guess.
What is the-
People show up. You're never gonna get everybody in the room at the same time, but,
What is the time demands?
what's that?
Yeah,
The time
time
demands for
there.
them, so like, a feel of,
How frequently?
I'll send it up to you, because I really don't know.
Okay. All right, so that's for the district advisory committee. And essentially, that advisory committee helps with curriculum, looks at test score type things. Okay. And then the staff development committee,
We currently have one that isn't what it should be. Todd is our staff development coordinator, Krippendrag. And he has monthly meetings. There's a rep from each building, actually 2 from each building that and himself, and I believe Angie goes to those.
one rep from each building, did you say?
There's 2 from each building right now. Himself and Angie, but you can see by that note you have there that we need to add some people to that too, so, I don't know, maybe somebody from one of the ones that gets nominated would be willing to be a part of that as well. Maybe they need somebody different, I don't know. We need a
It
parent.
says a majority of the advisory committee and the site professional development team must be teachers representing various grade levels, subject areas, and special education. It must also include non-teaching staff, parents, and administrators.
Yeah, we don't have any non-teaching staff on there right now.
it says it must.
We have administrators, Angie and Todd. We need parents.
And that, again, just so that we know what that committee's role is, that is just all professional development type stuff?
Site development, you said as well?
No, no, just professional development, staff professional development. So
See,
do
the
things
big
like,
thing that's happened with that is, where it's kind of evolved here is, we've spent all of our resources on math and reading for the most part. So I mean, if it isn't related to math and reading instruction, we really haven't done a whole lot for our staff development goes. I mean, we have some side shows going on, like I have a new bookkeeper that started today. I'm gonna ship him off to Masbo for a couple of days, you know, things like that happen. But for the most part, we're focused on math and reading, and a lot of the activity revolves around the Wednesdays. We don't do a lot of individual stuff anymore, like staff development of old used to be, you know, you'd send somebody down to the cities for a weekend and they learn about whatever. All of our stuff now is in-house, and on Wednesday afternoon. And something more related to math and reading instructions. So it's not quite what it used to be, but that committee that is formed right now, they do most of the planning for Wednesdays. I mean, they meet once a month and plan out what we're gonna do this month on Wednesdays.
okay, so if there's anything that you need from us, you'll let us know.
I just need the parent,
Just each board member needs to recommend a parent
yeah,
for that, okay. All right, that's all I wanted to discuss.
and I'll tell you what the time commitment is so that you can, when you go approach that person.
Randy, can I make one comment
Yeah, as long
on
as
staff
it's
development?
related.
Just The district did adopt some staff development bylaws back in 2006 that laid out the whole process, and a lot of time and effort went into putting those bylaws together. And
From 2006,
2006, October 2006, I think they were presented.
and that's part of the staff development.
Staff Development Committee, yeah. So you do have an adopted
I believe that was changed a couple of years ago. Mona was on that committee at the time. I wasn't part of it, but I do believe that the board changed that. It must have been 15 or 16.
Can you look
I'll
into
check
that
into
and
that.
see if you can give us that information?
Because the game has changed. I mean, it's, staff development isn't what it used to be.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's all yeah, thank you. That's all I.
All right, and I don't know. What do you say, 10 minutes on collaborative? What do you want to talk about?
Sure. I guess the collaborative thing, we just wanted to have a discussion on how everybody thinks it's going and
Okay.
thoughts on it, right?
Okay.
So, I think they've been going well. I think they've been going well, and I'd like to continue discussions. I think the academies thing is the way to go myself personally, because I think it offers a lot of opportunities to kids, and everybody I've talked to, from kids to parents, are interested in it. So I would like to continue the discussion. And I think that's something that we need to vote on for our next meeting, is to vote on whether or not we want to continue those discussions.
Isn't that in June? Is that in June?
What's that?
We discussed that, whether we want to continue talking.
February 12th.
No, we have to,
On February 12th, I'm going to put a proposal in front of you for, as far as the communication plan that Noel presented to you at the last collaborative meeting. So you'll give that a year, May, on the 12th, and if it's a yay, we have until June 30th to implement that communication plan and get those various groups, feedback from those groups. And then in June, once you have that information from the various groups, and that includes another trip down to Alexandria on March 22nd. When you have that information, you'll decide, are we gonna go down that road, or are we gonna do something else?
So this communication plan is going to be a plan of communication between the public, or what? I mean, I guess it's not saying that we're all in yet.
We're not all in yet.
It's just to keep.
What I'm asking you to do is, are we gonna keep going? All right, so what the board is basically asking us is, we're okay with this, but we gotta know when it comes to a vote if we're gonna get attacked or not. I mean, if this is a good idea. I mean, does the community support this? So we have to bring that information back to you. So in the process, we're, like Noel laid out a plan for how we're going to get out to those people and ask them, is this a good thing, is this a bad thing?
so basically.
That's what you're approving on the 12th, is if we
Yeah.
do that.
So basically, it's just giving the okay to continue getting information on whether or not this is something that we would potentially or possibly be interested in doing. So
But
it's just giving the okay to,
reach out to the public.
Yes,
to keep
Okay.
providing
getting
information to the
information.
public.
Okay.
Yep,
And
So
then
we're just looking for their input right now, at that point.
we're gonna inform them.
We're looking for public input.
Right.
We're in the public.
businesses and
Right.
things. Anybody else have anything to say about that?
There was something that was said at the end, I believe it was Noel, and he said how it's necessary that we go through the lengthy process, and there's the 3 phases. And then we had captured all those extra notes too, of what, this vision of what we have. And just the way that joint meeting has been conducted is a very positive thing. With both superintendents leaving, and then to have the moderator, and so if we, and we talked about maybe having an informal, well, it'd be formal setting for us, but informal for them, where it encourages at different site selections and things like that. But when we vote on this, we're gonna continue exploring this all the way through phase 3. And it is thorough, but we're gonna know. You're gonna be able to vote with complete conviction come June. It's a thorough process, and we're spending money, But it's the way that the administration is doing this. Kudos to how it's being covered so far. I think it's very professional, and it's encouraging teamwork. We're sitting there amongst each other every month, getting to know each other a little bit, and what they're about, their perspective, because these are people that's potentially, right? It's great.
On that transportation, okay. What can we expect, Jeff, at the next meeting on transportation?
I was asked to have that guy draw routes out, what it would look like and times, start and stop times. So that's what you're gonna get next time.
Is there gonna be dollar figures showing potential savings at it?
Yeah, he can correlate, reduced routes to a dollar figure.
I'd like to see that or have that for all the board members, both.
Yeah.
Both districts to have that a handout.
Okay.
Anything else? Everyone's good?
Oh, and I remember I mentioned to Brandy that I did get a hold of that gentleman from Gilbert
Oh, yeah,
in,
The
I
film.
mentioned to you at the concession stand,
yeah,
but
that's fine.
in the wells.
Oh, for the
To film
To record it.
Record session.
film,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it was like, it was kind of funny because you can have like, the premium, or you can have just the entry level, or, how many cameras do you want? Do you all want microphones? I thought, I don't know. And you can have, everybody can have a microphone, you can have 3 cameras, you can have 2 cameras, and,
And like I had mentioned, just make sure that if you're going to do that, give the guy's phone number to Jeff, so Jeff can,
but we were
Yeah, that's
aware
so
fair.
Jeff
of
can make,
we were aware at
Okay.
the meeting that that's what I was going to do.
you're gonna contact him.
I-
Well, I was gonna contact the guy.
Yeah, I asked him to do that. All right. Very good. Take it.
We're done?
Time for some basketball.
All right.